Alrighty, let's start today off with USD CAD. These are the pairs that are popular for today. If your pair or pairs didn't get chosen to be part of the analysis, don't worry. I'll continue to ask every single day, and if your pairs are the majority of what the majority votes for that day, then it will be put on, alright? So don't worry about it. And if you also want to map it out for me to check, that's also doable. Alright, just post it on the platform for me and other people to see what you've mapped out so we can help correct each other. Now, mind you that today, if we check on the forexfactory.com, we have no high impact news at all this afternoon up until the US session, meaning if there are no high volumes coming in, let me just put this to sleep. Sometimes for the currencies, it will not move as much, or you won't get any or much reaction from zones, alright? Because sometimes it needs the news to move it in that way, but not necessarily that your zones are wrong. It just doesn't have that volume, okay? So don't stress, don't rush into it. If you do not find any setups, even though it's in your zone, then be patient and wait for the setup to form, okay? Now, USD CAD. I have my sell zone up here, my buy zone down here. My sell zone starts with an engulfing buy that failed. Failed over here in the process of failing, created this engulfing sell. All right, then my buy zone, we have an engulfing sell that was respected once, twice with the wicks, and then this engulfing buy broke out of the zone, so meaning we have an EFEG buy. All right, so now we have both EFEG sell and EFEG buy. Okay, current price is very close to the sell zone, meaning since it's quite close to it, there is a likely chance or a higher chance that it will test the sell zone, right? If there is nothing to push this price down back into the buy zone. All right, just potentials that I am giving you. Now for USD CAD, what can it do? Let's screenshot this. If you have noticed, I did change my colors. Okay, all right, current price is over there. What can it do? If it decides to climb into our sell zone and respects it, then potentially we can catch a sell back down. But if it breaks above, meaning H4 closes above the zone, then potentially it might want to test, let's just lower this down. Then I might want to test a higher zone like this, all right? After breaking, the price can either shoot up in one go to the next zone or retrace back into our key level for a better buy up, vice versa. If it decides to just drop down into our buy zone and respects it, then potentially we can catch a buy back up. But if it breaks down below, then it might want to test a lower area. Okay? Same thing, same thing. Now, after H4 reaching your zone, if you have a higher risk appetite, then you can go ahead and switch down to M15 or M5 to find setups. If you are a low risk trader and quite conservative, then you wait for the H4 to close first before switching down, all right? Because you need that decision that is made for the H4 to know if it's going to respect in our zone or not, right? For the low risk traders or conservative traders. But if you have a higher risk appetite and are willing to risk some of your capital for the potential gain in profits, then while the H4 is running, you can find setups, right? So that's why you'll see wicks and getting an entry at the wicks. Okay, so that's just the difference. But either way, both traders should be in profit if you are using engulfings and key levels. Okay, so I'm just gonna write here monitor M5 or M15 for entry. All right, now next we move on to EJ. Quite a popular pair these days. People have been voting for EJ since Monday, but today majority of you guys voted on EJ. All right. We have our sell zone, potential sell zone from this engulfing sell. Not only that, I can use this doji candle also as an engulfing fail, but because it's an indecision candle and has no body, I don't like using that. It's very subjective. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But in this scenario, I'm going to use this engulfing sell because I have more data to work with. All right, so that's why I'm using this engulfing sell as my potential sell setup, right? And it also created this higher high, meaning there's a resistance over here, and if the price decides to come up into the zone and sellers are activated and they want to keep the price down, then potentially we can catch a sell from here. For my buy zone, we have an engulfing buy meets engulfing buy, and potentially we'll meet another engulfing buy if in close to 2 hours this will close as an engulfing buy on H4, right? If it does, for low risk traders, you can wait for the price to retrace back into the key level for a buy up, or if you want to find continuation setups, you can do too, right? Continuation setups meaning, let's say it were to close as an engulfing buy, then you go down and find your M5, M15 zones, meaning after it created this, right? We have our engulfing, let's say this was an engulfing sell, or actually let's use this one instead, a better one. This is an engulfing sell that failed. So if it closed as a buy and it does not want to retrace back into our key level, then you can find these zones of engulfing fails, whatnot, and wait for the price to retrace back. You know what, let me just screenshot this for you. Wait for the price to retrace back like this for a buy up. Same thing, if it decides to come up all the way here, right? If it decides to, after creating an engulfing buy, it can do this also, right? So you can find continuation setups like these if you have a higher risk appetite for the buy up, right? But for low risk traders and conservative traders, and me, I'm also telling me that I will wait for the key levels only. Right? I don't like trading in the black zone because it gives me anxiety, even though I know it's going to work, but I prefer myself to be or have less stress when I'm dealing with my own money. All right, so that is for EJ. Let's just draw it out. Oops, let's just delete this also. Let's just draw it out for people who can't watch the video. All right, current price is over here. If it decides to drop into our key level, then great. If H4 still respects it, and then we can try to find a buy back up. If it breaks below, then it might want to test a lower area, vice versa. If it continues to go up as it creates this engulfing buy on H4, then you'll have buy meets buy meets buy. Then you can find continuation setups as the price moves along up into the potential sell zone. After reaching the potential sell zone, if H4 decides to close within, then you can switch down to M5 or M15 to find a setup for a sell back down, right? If it gives you those setups. But if it doesn't, then there is a likely chance that it might want to break above like this. And if it closes above, then we know it potentially might want to test a higher, a higher area or a higher zone, right? After entering, please make sure you set your SLs, all right? These are to help manage your losses as well as manage your risk for your account. So SLs, I usually say 40 pips from entry. This is a safe spot, sweet spot from entry. Let me just put it down here. All right, if it's too low, like 15 pips, 20 pips, sometimes it might touch your SL before moving in the direction. If it's too big, like 50, 60 pips, especially for currency pairs, then sometimes you will lose too much money because after it hitting 40 pips, it's already showing signs of reversals or something like that. So if you're setting it for too much of an SL while you're trading H4, then it's not that great. But if you're trading daily setups, then it's okay to have 50, 60 pips SL because the zones are bigger. But if you're trading intraday and you're using H4 and M15 zones, then 40 pips is enough. All right. Last but not least, NZD/USD. All right, NZD/USD. Ooh, it's really loud here. I'm so sorry. There's construction going on. We're trying to build our greenhouse and everything. So we have our sell zone up here, which is an engulfing buy that failed, price came back, created this engulfing sell, then this wick touched and tapped into our key level before this drop down. All right, so it hasn't created or it hasn't completed the HLZ or our ABC. Next is we have our buy zone, sorry. It's an engulfing sell that failed, price came back, closed within, created an engulfing buy. Then we also have another engulfing buy, meaning it's completed its ABC or its HLZ on H4. Now the problem is, for this H4, will it create any setups? Because our previous H4 closed within, right? So what am I going to do? I am going to drop down into M15 because our previous H4 closed within, and then I'm going to start mapping my potential zones, especially in the key level, right? So if I were to do this, I already have my M15 engulfing sell that failed. So now I have my EF, right? My A. So what do I do next? I have to wait. If I'm going to monitor for M15 only, I need at least another engulfing buy to make it EFEG buy, or after even the buy, I will wait for another one to make it a complete ABC. But sometimes the ABC doesn't show, right? So what can I do? I go into a smaller time frame, right? Like I said, if you were trading H4 or using H4 zones, then pair it with M15 and M5. For now, M15, I have a potential zone for a buy. So what do? I go into M5 and see if I can find any setups on M5 within this zone. Currently, I can see it's going sideways like this. It broke out, and now it's testing in the M15 zone. But so far, nothing much for M5. I have a zone over here for M5. Let's just put my M5 colors. Oops. My M5 colors. There we go. So we have an engulfing buy that was respected over here. Then for in this middle in the zone, we don't really have much except for this engulfing buy also. So I'm just gonna map it out like this if it wants to create an engulfing buy meets an engulfing buy. Because if it creates an engulfing buy meets an engulfing buy in the M5 zone, then there is a potential that M15 will also create an engulfing buy if it breaks above. Alright, so I'm just putting all the time frames together, mash it up. So these are the zones that I'm gonna monitor for NZD/USD if I want to trade. So go ahead and map it out and just try to monitor, right? Because if this M5 breaks, then there is still this M5 down below. All right, it will be my last defense because it's out of the key level. But I like to trade within the key levels, and I find the zones from the key levels. All right, so go ahead, swap down, and try to map it out and see what you can get. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Have a good day. Bye.